Hey guys, really quick before we get started on this episode, if you think you might like a Fireside t-shirt or other cool Fireside swag, including back rubs, be sure to check out our Patreon page and consider becoming a patron of the Fireside Tattoo Network. It helps us continue to provide free content to you guys, and then you get a little gift as well. The link is below. Please check it out. We would greatly appreciate it. Enjoy the episode. Going? Good. I'm gonna clap. I need it. Hey, welcome to the Fireside Tattoo Podcast, the official I'm looking down like I have to read that. Welcome to the Fireside. Welcome to the Fireside Tattoo Podcast. My name is Jake. I'm the host. Back here in Memphis, Tennessee. You all right? You got dive bombed. I want to get a little business out of the way first. Make sure to go to tattooimprovement.com, see our newly designed website. It's set up where you can search up in the top and say, I want to see an episode, or I want to know everything they've ever said about blah, 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 this person. And man, you search it and it just pops right up. Like we talked about him in a blog in this thing, and we interviewed him in this one, and you can see all that stuff. You can also sign up for our newsletter while you're there, find out where we're going to be. We had every intention of being at Space City in a couple of weeks, but it looks like we have a conflict of schedule, so we're not going to make it down to Huntsville. But we are booked. We're on the roster for Hell City, Phoenix. Not Columbus, but Phoenix. Excited about that. I will be tattooing there alongside my buddy Ty Pilata. We will be podcasting as well somewhere at the event. I don't know exactly where yet, and we don't know exactly with who, but we have some months to figure that out. We also have... Will this be out before the Dan Marshall workshop? I'm going to say it anyways. On April, probably the week after this comes out, April the 10th through 12th, Dan Marshall, who we interviewed back in last April in Venice, will be in Memphis doing a plein air painting workshop. We still have some spaces available. You should definitely make your way to Memphis, hang out and paint with me, with Dan, and with some other tattooers and some painters. Oh, what else? Nick Baxter is coming to do a one-day still life painting workshop in July the 30th, I think. We don't have the sign up on the website just yet on that one. It's a little bit early, but if you want to email me for details, Jake at Fireside Tats. We haven't changed that over. It's still firesidetats.com. You can email me and I'll let you know or put you on the list so that you have a spot. I don't have a price on it. It's only one day, so I'm sure it's super affordable. Is that it? Is that all the business? Follow us on Instagram and Facebook. So I spent last week in Toronto, Canada. It was my first trip. Super cool town, really tall buildings, really friendly people. Only like 48 people were murdered there last year. Did you hear that, Sean? 48 people. They're over 5 times the size of Memphis. We lost 48 people since I've been podcasting in Memphis, right? Just now, 48 people have died. They lost 48 people in a whole year. It's crazy. This because they're all so nice. But anyways, that's not the point of this show. The point of the show is, while I was there, I was in a workshop with a group of guys and girls that were really kind of high-level thinkers, obviously, if I was there. Really kind of high-level thinkers. And people that are kind of challenging their own industries, challenging their own ideas, challenging each other's ideas, and really trying to grow both professionally and personally. And they're all, in a much bigger tax bracket than I am, and working in probably bigger industries than tattooing. But I left there pretty inspired and thinking a lot about just about what we do and things like that. And particularly expanding tattooing, expanding it from an artistic standpoint, not so much on the trade side, but thinking thinking about it from different perspectives. So I left there, and the next day I went to the Toronto Art Museum, I guess. I forget what it's called, but it's massive. I've always had the problem when I go in museums of feeling like I have to walk up to every painting or drawing or whatever and like analyze it, and it's overwhelming. I get anxious at museums because sometimes I don't have any reaction at all to the paintings or drawings, but I'm trying to find something in them, and I feel like I need to stop and look at them, like maybe someone's judging me based on how long I stand in front of a painting. I don't know, I have no reason for it. But I took a different approach this time. I walked into a room. I think you should try this in your local galleries museum. I walked into a room kind of not focused on anything, and I just waited for something to grab my eye from across the room. You know how we're always talking about working from general to specific, or I talk a lot about shapes and values and having a dynamic composition and all that. So I was like, well, I'm always encouraging people to approach drawings that way. Shouldn't I look for what draws my attention? So that's what I would do. I would walk into a room and I would look, and if something grabbed my attention, I would walk up to it and I would try to figure out what about it grabbed my attention. Like, why did I see that from across the room when there were 15 other paintings, master paintings or drawings in the room with it? And sometimes it's something as simple as like scale, size, whatever. Most often for me, it had a lot to do with strong areas of contrast. I would say it had a lot to do with better draftsmanship, but I did it in every room. In museums, they break it up into like an abstract area or a early European area or a master's kind of area. And I noticed it even in the abstract areas, which I typically don't spend a lot of time in, but I walked into those rooms and it was typically strong contrast and really clear shapes that drew me in. And then as I got closer, I would pay more attention to the subtlety. So when I would get closer, if it was just a strong contrast and simple shape, I lost interest pretty quickly. But if it used, say, opaque pigments against like really translucent areas, or if it used really like fuzzy atmospheric perspective and something really strong in the foreground, the masters really did a great job of that. There were a handful of Rembrandts at this place. There were I forget there were a lot of master paintings, and so it got me thinking about what it is that draws me in, and then what I can do to reproduce those things both in painting, drawing, and in tattooing, particularly in tattooing. And I think a lot of it goes back to the principles that we talk about all the time, the principles that we teach in our foundations program. But for whatever reason, there is still a little bit of a disconnect, I think, in tattooing in general and this kind of fundamental art approach. And I don't have a great explanation as to why. I'm sure you guys can hear the airplane that just grazed my house. I don't have a great explanation as to why, other than I feel like a lot of times we get so caught up in the day-to-day of going to work and doing tattoos and drawing for tattoos, and this approach always works because I've been doing it all this time, that we neglect to really step back, look at what we're doing, question why we're doing it. A great example is the Dan Marshall workshop that's coming up in a couple of weeks. I took flyers to the local tattoo shops. We scheduled it to be tattoo friendly. It's a Monday through Wednesday, so it doesn't affect with people's weekend tattooing. Dan Marshall is a great tattooer, and he brings a lot of tattoo experience to his watercolor painting. And I could tell, not to talk down about anyone here in Memphis, any Memphis tattooers, but I could tell when I handed some of the flyers out that they didn't even consider it. It wasn't even a question. It was just oh, that's cool. Oh, that's awesome. Good for you that you're doing that. And obviously these people could benefit. Everyone can benefit from stepping outside of their safe zone. I've never painted in watercolor, and I'm gonna buy watercolor stuff to do this workshop. So obviously people can benefit from stepping out of their safe zone, but you get so caught up working in that safe zone that you rarely step back, you rarely expand what you're doing, or at least not at the rate that you could. You might make incremental improvements from time to time, but handling another medium, getting completely out of your comfort zone, escalates that. It really, really speeds that stuff up. So going back to the museum, I was thinking about, how artists were handling paints, how they were handling using really muted, how their palette was. You know, if they used really muted tones and really bold and bright, high key colors and things like that. And I realized that none of these things would have stood out to me 5 years ago because I was a tattooer. I was just a tattooer. I didn't go to workshops. I didn't go to drawing groups. I didn't get in the studio and draw from life. I didn't do any of that stuff because I had a job and it was tattooing. And when I left tattooing, the last thing I wanted to do was think about drawing again. Because if I was going to sit down and draw something on my own, it would just be another stupid tattoo. So it wasn't until I stepped out and I went to a Casey Ball workshop and I learned how he limits his color palette. I have translated that a dozen times. You guys have seen it in technique episodes. You've seen it in if you've been through Find Your Style, you've seen my interpretation of his color palette in everything that we do. It's something that spoke to me that if I hadn't spent the money, gone and done it, would have never not only benefited me, but benefited Fireside Tattoo Network, benefited anyone that's watched any of it. Jeff Hine, I went to Jeff Hine's workshop. He uses very straight bits of pigment rather than mixing a lot on the palette. He mixes a lot directly on the canvas. He introduced me to the idea that something should look good from 3 inches, 3 feet, and 30 feet. You guys have heard me say that 100 times. So as I'm walking through this museum, I'm thinking the entire time, like, everything that I appreciate now, literally, from an artistic standpoint, from a tattoo standpoint, from the things that I'm interpreting and teaching to you guys, has come from me stepping out of my comfort zone and putting myself out there and seeing what stuck. I listened to a ton of stuff. 10% of it stuck, and I've found a way to interpret it. I'm continuing to find a way to interpret it and reintroduce it in my own way, reintroduce it in my own work through technique videos and anything else. So, and I know the same thing's going to happen in this Marshall workshop. Whenever I finish a 3-day workshop with Dan, I have no doubt that something from that will end up in some of our programs. Not that I'm stealing people's information. You just can't invent new stuff by doing the same thing all the time. You have to get fresh input. And it's frustrating to me, I guess, that we bring something like a workshop like Dan's here, and I hand flyers out to people that I know can benefit from it, no doubt can benefit from it. All that I'm asking is they invest a little bit in themselves, a very small amount of money, and 3 days out of their week to really do something that will step up their level of work for the rest of their lives. It may not be direct, but the income that they generate from the ideas they get at workshops like these will pay itself back countless times over whatever this workshop is, $200 or $300. So I just hate to see people that I care about and people that I know can do more just keep going through the grind every single day and neglect to invest in themselves. And it doesn't just end with that. You know, we've been putting our foundations course, we're running Facebook ads for it, trying to get people to think about tattooing from a real kind of draftsman perspective, from a perspective of simplifying shapes, making sense out of those shapes, solving all the problems on the front end so your tattoos don't end up all jumbled. Well, the immediate kickback response from seasoned tattooers is, great, now everyone that walks up to my shop is going to think they're a tattooer. Now everyone's going to try to get in on this. Like, it's this protectionist kind of attitude. And it's not like I'm trying to teach people how to set up their machines and do tattoos. We're trying to teach people how to be responsible artists. This thing has elevated. Tattooing is elevated. It's not just a trade anymore. You can't get away with not being able to draw. You're doing yourself a disservice, and you're doing your clientele a disservice, and you're doing the whole industry a disservice. So, you know, and I know a lot of these people are internet trolls, and I don't want to get too far into that. We talked about it a little bit a few episodes ago. But I have made a point whenever I see some of these really kind of blow it off comments like, oh, you don't need to be teaching drawing to tattooers, or you don't need to be teaching tattooing. I have scoped them out, gone and looked on their profiles, and without fail, not one single time has anyone made that comment that can draw. Not once. Everyone that's making these comments, I go to their page and they lack fundamental drawing skills. Not a single exception. So it's, it's crazy. It's frustrating because they need it. It's this protectionist attitude of like, let's shut this thing back down because it's getting too competitive for me and I'm afraid to work. I'm afraid to put in the work. I'm afraid to put myself out there. I want to keep doing what I've always done and get away with it. I don't want anyone coming in and challenging me because they can draw better than me. It's what, like we were just saying, it's what cab companies are doing to Uber. It's what the Hilton does to Airbnb. It's what everyone does that's in an old guard that is intimidated or threatened by bigger and better ideas being introduced into their industry. And the problem with it is, in this industry, is that it's not an option to shrink it down. This industry is too big now. I mean, it's getting bigger by the day. And yeah, I mean, the future of tattooing, will it shrink back in on itself at some point? Probably so. But the growth that comes from it, the artistic growth in particular that comes from it, will not go away. We've set a bar in the quality of tattoos that whenever tattooing and its popularity dies back down, if it ever does, that bar doesn't drop. You drop because you didn't put in the work to get up to the bar. So I didn't mean for this to turn into anything negative. That wasn't really my point. My point was just to encourage you to do something different, to get away from the tattoo machine. Put that fucking tattoo machine down. Take a week off. Take a painting workshop. If you can't afford it, go to a free drawing group. I understand a lot of us are struggling being full-time artists. But the full-time artists that put the work in, that reinvest in themselves, that take that time to get away and introduce new idea or find new ideas to introduce to themselves, they don't end up broke for very long because they grow and their clientele recognizes it and they demand a premium for what they do because they've invested in themselves. And it all comes back. It all comes back around. So I think I'm going to leave it at that. If I offended anyone, I don't care anymore. Doesn't matter. Thank you guys, and we will see you next time. All right.